van de Kooij. So he studied theology and archaeology at Leiden University and received his training as an archaeologist mainly from Henk Frank. His professional connection with Leiden University began at 1974 as assistant for archaeology and ancient religion, continuing eventually as lecturer in the archaeology of the Palestine Levant. His main research concerns two site projects. Tel Bir Allah, jointly with colleagues of the Yarmouk University and the Department of Antiquities of Jordan. He published the first edition of the famous Balaam inscription from Der Allah together with Jacob Hofdijzer. And the second site is Gerrit on the West Bank since 1998, jointly with Taha, Director General of the Palestinian Department of Antiquities and Cultural Heritage. He is currently responsible for the 2004-2007 project Settling the Steppes, the archaeology of changing society in Syro-Palestinian drylands during the Bronze and Iron Age, combining the Der Allah project with the Hammam et Turkman project of the Manor, studying how and why settlements were established and deserted. Together with Monique van den Dries, he is involved in the Tel Belata Shechem Cultural Heritage Project. On this topic, he will give a lecture entitled Dealing with Endangered Cultural Heritage, the case of Tel Belata, Palestine. I give the floor to Gerrit.
Chairman, thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm very pleased to be invited to contribute to this conference. Archeology for Peace conference is dealing mainly with Syria. Yes, is it all right? Yeah. Okay. But in this case, we are not dealing with a site in Syria, but in Palestine. The logic behind this is that the subject of management of cultural and archaeological heritage, including social archaeology, became a common aspect of archaeological research and education. Any experience in this field of study may be of use elsewhere, although in this case social and political contexts in Syria differ quite from those in Palestine. We would like to discuss the case of Tel Belata and see how the excavated archaeological heritage became endangered, and discuss the methods used to counter the destructive processes. These methods were put in practice especially by the Tel Belata Archaeological Park project from 2010 to 2014, with a supplement on social archaeology up to 2018. About the last part, there is a small leaflet lying on the table just outside the doorway. The park project was based on an existing cooperation between Palestine, Department of Antiquities, and the Netherlands, Leiden University, since 1996. Like before, this project was also designed and implemented by a joint Palestinian-Dutch team with involvement of the local people, but in this case also in cooperation with UNESCO. It was actively promoted and funded by the Dutch government, Department of Development Cooperation, in order to contribute in a direct sense to the immense task of the Palestinian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities and its small Department of Antiquities and Cultural Heritage, and also to exemplify the safeguarding of some elements of cultural heritage. But beyond these goals, it was also meant to contribute to developing the identity of the Palestinian people and to increase tourism revenues, apart from, of course, the direct social benefits of contacts between Palestinian and Western, Dutch, in this case young, generally, people cooperating in a camp situation. You know how camps work, and it worked in this way also on this occasion. The archaeological heritage of the site of Tel Balata, historical Sichem or Shitmo, was endangered in two ways, especially under the occupation till 1995. The physical remains, excavated and not excavated, were threatened by natural forces combined with human forces, urban pressure and neglect, resulting in erosion, collapse, garbage pits and other changes. And the second change is the interpretation of the site and of its excavated remains was largely based on biblical narratives, especially for touristic and popular audiences, neglecting the intrinsic cultural values of the different periods represented in the town. I like now to follow the order of the contents which you saw in the previous slide. Quite a few subjects, or chapters you may call them. They will be indicated by, of course, the numbers 1, this was the introduction, and 2, site research, and then 3 and so on in the dark, sort of dark blue frame. You can see on this slide the location on the sort of historical map. Over there, of course. So that means on a crossroads, north-south and east-west going, one of the few crossroads in this part of Palestine. And that means it had a strategic, communication-wise position. You can see the photograph here in Overtown, showing Nablus at the back, looking towards the west, to the Mediterranean Sea, and on the other side of the narrow pass, so the eastern side, you see here the village of Balata, and also the site Tel Balata. Difficult to recognize, but anyway, it's there. You can see also on this old photograph, the village of Balata, a photograph taken partly because of the, I suppose, because of Jacob's well over there, and Joseph's tomb over there. So it is a site which has, the location is famous for pilgrimage, and it became later famous by excavations. But I encircled this little part because that was a piece of a wall visible before excavations in the field, and it had been mentioned already since the Middle Ages, like that being there. But in 1903, it was the reason for some Old Testament and classical scholars to say, well, this is Shechem. This Tel Balata is a city looking at the Cyclopean wall. They call it the Cyclopean wall with large stones. It must be Shechem. And that was accepted generally in the, well, not fully all the time, but generally in the scholarly, historical Old Testament world. The first excavations took place by the Germans, the Austrians, Germans, under the Rijksmuseum of Oudheden in 1913 1914 and continuing to 1926. And this is just a view during 1927 by Bucc, who was participating in that work. The village of Balata again. Joseph's tomb here, here Joseph's tomb, near Jacob's well. Very fertile, nice red soil plain, and the mountain of Gerizim going up here, and the mountain Ebal, on which the photographer is standing. This part of the wall over there was the part that was seen in 1903 and taken as the Cyclopean wall of a big city, Siegen. I should add right now that the part that was visible was up from this upward, and no stone has changed since then. The first photograph taken of that part was published in 1913, and if you compare that photograph with current situation, nothing has changed. Amazingly. Work was done, of course, with a large team of people, enormous team, small, let's say, team of scholars, just some 5-6 people, but hundreds of workers, male and female. The male ones had to loosen the earth. The female, the women, took the earth on their head up to the top over there and partly onto a small wagon on rails and put outside the location. That male and female workers were working together was extremely rare at the time, and there was no reason yet why it was done. It was an important event because it was the start of wage labor in the village of Buccellati, so it gave a change in the economic situation of the villages, the farmers' villages. The site was drawn in this way, and you see the long trenches, also the test trenches, search trenches, and larger exposures, very large exposure because of the temple building there and the large wall over there. But the problem was the dump. They all said, well, it's very nice to have a dump because then you can take photographs from above onto the excavated parts. So we was not pleased when the dump was removed from all those places. So we couldn't make those photographs anymore, except from the e-bowl of JC. Detailed drawings were made of the architecture, and I should say right away here that the architecture excavated by the German expeditions up to 1939 or 38, most of what you can see nowadays are by their excavations. So they preserved only the, let's say, the stone structures, not the mud-brick parts on top of it, and also only if the stone structure was still in the sort of original situation. The other stones were removed. This shows the earliest part of the excavation of a wall 8 meters high, partly even higher, preserved, and you see the size of the stones used, so the Cyclopean is in a way a proper terminology for it. So that's that long wall, Middle Bronze Age, and this is the northwestern gate. Northwestern gate nowadays looks like that, and nowadays we also have the indication for visitors to say northwestern wall. Northwestern gate, sorry. But this gate had not changed since the First World War. But during the First World War, everything on top of this level was removed by the villagers in order to build their houses from. A very good way of recycling archaeological remains, but not the proper way that Salim liked, in fact. He didn't like it. Another very important feature, touristically but also archaeologically, is this temple. This is the plan of it. If you look at it from the inside, you see the shape over there. And well, it looks like a platform, but it became a platform only because people didn't want to excavate there, but continued to excavate in the sides. But anyway, it's sort of a place before this Middle Bronze temple, with an altar, supposed, and with a stele, which was fallen down, but originally was positioned there. Then the Americans came, they put back the steeling in the original place, and they did many other things apart from excavation. I will just give you a few things on it. You see here the excavations again. The site continues like that, with the eastern gate over there, and the Americans worked there, they worked here, many different places also over there. But it's also a document of the history of the village of Buccellati. The photograph shows clearly all the different housing, so it could be used for anthropological or ethno-historical purposes. Another way is excavation were used, partly. Not all members of the team agreed with this modernizing way, Kenyon's method, Wheeler's method, but it was used. Small teams in the field, working in different spots. This is a 10 by 10 square altogether. And a large crew of staff. Interestingly, this American crew, like at Tel Jesser, was, let's say, mercenary for American archaeologists. Many of those became known very well later on, and some of them you may even recognize. I think this is still Deaver, still among us, and he is one, of course, the famous archaeologist. Wright is this person, so he was the director of it. In any case, this stratigraphic approach had also an effect in drawing sections. But apart from that, architectural excavation continued, and the Americans used the stones which they did not see as belonging to a wall or they could not use. They used them in the way as the Germans also had done to protect the dump against erosion. So that's a method to protect against erosion, and that's a method which belongs to management of a site, at least in Gerrit. Ernst Wright on the left, and he brought in, apart from this little bit of stratigraphy, he was not in favor himself, the real Kenyon method at all, but he brought in pottery studies based upon his teacher's work, Fulbright, as a means to date buildings and to date strata. The Germans mainly, well, they also used a little bit of pottery for that purpose, but mainly used architectural styles and of course architectural strata. A major and influential protective measurement, so aspect of management of the site, is the same spot again with the temple over there and this forecourt over there. The steel is still not in its right position, and they started to build a wall around it in order to protect that section and to protect, in fact, what had become a platform. And this is the result. So this is a new wall, protecting wall, with the steel nicely there, very strong, fit for busloads of visitors, and that was the purpose. And the wall continues over there because the temple had to be visited. This Middle Bronze Age temple, it was interesting because of biblical narrative, Abimelech, Abraham, and so forth. This part, however, is a Middle Bronze wall. See here? Still there. So it's mixed in there. Well, at the end of the work by the Americans, we have this view of the western part of the site, and it shows the major architectural remains, mainly discovered by the Germans, and very much suitable for all sorts of visitors, especially, of course, with a religious interest in the site. The timeline the Americans sort of found out, building forth upon what the Germans had done, shows a clear early settlement age, the main settlement, with the main structures, including this temple, fortress, so-called fortress temple we have been looking at before. Late Bronze Age must have been an important town because it connects with the Amarna letters found in Egypt, with King Ubaya. Iron Age, right at the top and many places on the side, but little excavated, or little preserved, I should say, during excavation. And Hellenistic times, a little bit better preserved, but also little altogether. So those were the excavations up to recently. The Palestinian Authority came about, of course, in 1994, Oslo agreements. The political situation, social situation as well, was right from the start quite complicated because you had three zones. Dark brown, zone A, several settlement of city-inhabited centers, the dark brown. The yellow one, zone B, and the white one, zone C. Zone C, complete Israeli authority. It changed a little bit through the Wide Accord and through other accords, and then it returned back again and so forth. It was sort of wiggling around. And then you have this, let's say, complex patchwork of the map. With blue, Jewish settlements, red, military bases, and so on. This part at Nablus is interesting because here, zone A, which is this part, borders directly to zone C. For military control, Tel Aras has, of course, an important viewing and listening post over there. They could see us, and we could see them if we used our theodolite. But there was no problem, of course, in that respect at all. But they just kept an eye on everything that was going on in Balata, and from there you could also see quite a bit from Nablus, looking from there over the town. This is an old map already, 64, so they changed quite a bit. It was quite clear and nice one to use. Since 1995, the Department of Antiquities exists there, and it was right from the start directed by Dr. Hamdan Taha, who had done quite a bit of work in distributing archaeological knowledge through radio and TV among the population. On this photograph, you can clearly see how the city is approaching. The village of Balata camp over there, and as an outskirt of Nablus, it is using quite a bit of the fertile soil that we saw on the early photographs of 90 years ago. The Tel is over there with this cyclopean wall again, and so forth. Palestinian society has, Hamdan said, for the first time the possibility to study and teach its own history. So that was completely new for them. The role of archaeology, heritage of past societies, is part of the identity of current society in the same region, and the care for it is her responsibility. It's not just a statement, that is a belief also. The elements of archaeological heritage have many values, and there we are with heritage management, the word values, such as understanding history, used by local people in many ways, and promoting tourism. It depends on the stakeholders. There are many stakeholders, many people that are involved or connected. It could be scholars, it could be historians, it could be political units, it could be local people. They could have another value. It could be economic people, because they may see, dollars in their eyes. This might be an important touristic spot, so we may earn a good income. Everybody value there, its value. That's of course a problem, because as archaeologists, we see only one value, the value of what the heritage tells itself about the ancient people. The problem is, of course, how do we archaeologists know what the heritage tells? For that you have to use scholarly tools that we know too well, that scholarly tools could be manipulated easily for whatever purpose there are. Anyway, this Department of Antiquities had a huge task, as indicated, of course, incidental things, but also structural things like law. And modern law is a very modern law indeed, being provisionally applied by now. Public awareness, research, and so on. And in this case, for example, Gerrit also includes schools. And in this case, a school to make mosaics. And they sell the mosaics they produce. That means income. Apart from that, the world is also interested in Palestine. As you see at the bottom of the slide, in 2012, Bethlehem was taken as a World Heritage Site. There are more sites of interest, probably. There is a provisional list made in 2005 and 2009 repeated of natural heritage sites with potential outstanding world value. And Malata with Nablus, Kasbeh, the old city, and a few other parts around Nablus are one of those. So that was the reason for the Dutch government to choose also this site to assist financially in promoting archaeological work and especially infrastructure, and also the capacity of the Department of Antiquities and the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. And that's why this archaeological park project started. The implementation of the project had three main aspects. Archaeological research, the slide of cleaning the site from all the garbage, all the old tallies that were put in all those holes, the old cars that were put there, and set on fire, and so forth and so on. It was really a tip for all sorts of garbage. And excavations, village management, restoration, because that retaining wall the Americans built had collapsed, partly, around that platform, so-called, in front of the temple. And community archaeology. That means a close connection, not only with external visitors, but also local visitors, the local people. Because the local people had a tradition of archaeological interest. They worked with the Germans, they worked with the Americans, and several of those that worked with them were still there and worked with us also. And there was a lot of interest also among the young people. Let's start now with that archaeological assessment and field work, cleaning, excavation, just very shortly indicated. Short indications. The blue parts are American excavation, at least partly. The white is German excavation, and the